Excuse me while I get organized here a little bit. So, why aren't I using Meerkat? Because didn't Twitter just buy somebody that's a competitor, hasn't yet launched a Meerkat?
Yeah, it's the latest and greatest.
This is the problem. I'm an old fogey, and latest and greatest, I don't know. So let me see if I can get this.
It'll be old by Friday anyway.
Yeah, that's true, right? There'll be a completely new thing here. So I'm going to see if I can run my Keynote thing remotely. Sometimes this works. Sometimes it doesn't. Bear with me here while my slides are all goofy for now. Okay, so welcome to the Lean Startup. First, I guess I want to say thank you. Hey, look at that. To SVL, one of our sponsors here. Peter is the guy in charge, the guy to talk to anyway, about becoming a member. This is a great co-working space and a fun place to hang out. And they're one of our sponsors here, providing the space for us. So big thank you to Peter. Pluralsight, we'll be giving away some memberships later tonight for Pluralsight, so hang around for that. Microsoft BizSpark, if anybody knows David Washington or anything, we need to talk to him. BizSpark has our BizSpark membership right now, but we're still supposedly sponsored by them. And you, so a few of us have contributed and chipped in to the group, and we really appreciate it. I'm forgetting your name, but I know you. Nina, there we go. Thank you. Nina pitched in, a few other people. So thank you so much. If you happen to contribute to the group, we'd appreciate it. We're not going to have many slides today, so I'm going to let it be off. Sponsorship opportunities to help with the group, all of that are available. If you're going to tweet it all today, Lean Startup MN. What is this? That's hey, look at that. Problem solver. Lean Startup MN is the Twitter handle. And then let's take a little bit of time. Who wants to talk to or share their experience? Like if you've learned anything about Lean Startup this week, or anything interesting you've heard about or learned this week, related to Lean or otherwise, I guess. Anybody?
I just learned about you today, so I've learned about you.
You learned about Lean Startup, the group today. Okay. Anybody else? I'm put you on the spot.
Did you guys see that Eric Ries's new book leaked on Kickstarter today?
I did. That's great. So you want to say what you know about that? Probably more than
I don't know much. I just know that it's his follow-up to his book, and if you want to back it, it's $20 to get the digital version and $40 for the hard copy. So then you get some extra content along the way.
Nice.
And he's actually doing a third book too, I think, within a year.
Really?
Yeah.
One of the comments that I heard from that was one of his comments was that it was so terrible to write the first one, he'd never do it again or something like that. And
Yeah.
so now he's off at it again. Well, that's cool. Anybody else?
I mean, it's not exactly Lean Startup specific, but Minnesota Department of Revenue is putting on a class on Thursday that's free. And it is about business entities, so LLCs, S Corps, C Corps, all that kind of stuff. It's a 2-hour class. It's on Thursday from 1 to 3, and you can just kind of go to the website and type in workshops, you'll be able to track it down.
Excellent.
What part of Minnesota was it again?
Department of Revenue.
Okay.
That's awesome. Anybody else? Something fun? I've known about it for a little while, but one of the things that's come out more recently is a book called Value Proposition Design, which I kind of like, if you guys have had a chance to read about that. But it really is kind of, if you've seen the business model canvas, it's really two main points on that. All right, cool. Well, we're on track. Without any further ado, Toby is going to tell us about outsourcing. Welcome, Toby.
I'll say a few words about introducing Toby here. Toby Cryns, he's active in a couple other meetups. I think he's got Minneapolis St. Paul WordPress meetup, as well as Twin Cities Robotics meetup. He's been doing web development for about a 10-year period, and recently has been experimenting with outsourcing some of that work to other people and just being the guy who's pulling the strings. So here's Toby to talk about that.
All right. Thank you, Eric. Hello, everybody. Thank you for that round of applause there.
Yeah.
And thanks for having me. I'm super pumped. This is my first talk about outsourcing. Been doing it probably 6 or 7 years now, but before that I was a freelancer, and I have a company called the Mighty Mo. I did freelance WordPress stuff for 6 or 7 years just with myself, and then outsourcing. And then the last 2 or 3 years we've been outsourcing. I've taken myself out of the whole bottleneck and just built a team, and we've been doing that now for 2 or 3 years. But before I get into my story, I'd like to just ask you what you'd like to talk about today related to outsourcing. Do you have any specific topics or questions?
I'm always looking at trying to standardize the price, which I know is impossible, but just getting a feel for how much more I'm going to pay when I'm outsourcing, or why it's less, but the quality is not as
Great, thanks. So pricing.
We manage proprietary content, not from the standpoint of protecting against public SQL kind of things. Proprietary program.
Mm-hmm. So code, you want to protect your code base, is that?
Yep.
Thanks.
Domestic versus international.
Mhm.
How to find quality people to
Mhm.
do the work. How do you qualify whoever you're
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Who do you have outsourcing, and what do they do?
Like my team.
Yeah.
Mhm. So like what seats, what positions exist in the company, is that?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Platforms, if there's differences in how you do outsourcing based on technologies or
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
What would you recommend outsourcing versus keeping in-house?
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
What's been your experience for the real difference in cost? So, you know what I mean by that versus
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so overhead and
overhead and redoing it, and so, you know.
yep,
I've got a lot of
work,
experience with-
yep. Mhm. My actual cost. So I can give you some actual.
Yeah.
So the actual cost of doing business.
Yeah.
Yep. Mhm.
You're outsourcing the outline for your talk, I noticed right now, to the audience.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
You guys have worked together before.
Good strategies for effective communication.
Mhm. Oh yeah, yeah. All right, anything else?
I would just say throw my pricing into the real cost. I mean, that's basically.
Oh, sure. Mm-hmm. Yep. Exit strategy. So you've been outsourcing and now you want to cut the rope. Okay. We just fired all of our whole team, so we're can speak to that. Cool. Any other questions or thoughts? All right. The first thing I wanted to address when it comes to outsourcing, I'm going to just give you a few sentences here, and then I'll tell you how I got, like, my story. One thing I found about outsourcing is everybody has a different idea of what outsourcing is and what it can do, and pros and cons, and everyone has had a different experience. So I always like to think of the definition of outsourcing as a very personal thing to you or your business. And it's been very personal for me in terms of the way that I've done it. So I'm not prescriptive about my methodology, but I can share my experiences with it. There's certain frameworks that I would recommend, but I don't really prescribe like a methodology for actual tactical stuff. But basically, the reason I got into outsourcing initially was I just said yes to things I couldn't do. This was when I was a freelancer, and I was like, yeah, I could do like 80% of that project. And so I would bring in local people that I know to support pieces that I didn't know how to do. And I did that for probably 4 years, where I would take on bigger projects and just do the stuff I knew how to do and have other people do the rest. About 3 years ago, I had a daughter that was just born, and I had another son on the way, and just was totally burned out. I was working, probably 80 hours a week, and I really wanted to be there for my family and be present at home, and I wanted to help raise my kids. And so I ended up making a decision. I was either going to quit the business and just throw it away and do something else, or I was just going to try to change it so that I could be home more and be present at home more. So the mission of the Mighty Mo, at about 3 years ago, I changed the mission. It used to be, we're going to build awesome WordPress stuff, and now it's, we're going to give Toby time at home. And that's really the mission of the Mighty Mo. And my first step that I took towards that was I hired a CEO. And I said, look, your job is to get me time, whatever that means. And so he just started the process of that. Since I did that, it's been just an awesome ride, like just in terms of learning, lots of good things, lots of bad things, but also I work now probably 30 hours a week. Revenues have done super high compared to where they were. My net profits have gone way up. So basically I'm making more money, working less hours. And also the work that we're doing is higher quality than I could ever do myself. And the communication we have is better than I could ever do myself as well. So that's my background and my story. I'm going to get into some specifics of what we did, and then I'll just open it up to Q&A and we can start talking about this stuff. But just a general overview. So when we started 3 years ago outsourcing, we hired two Filipino developers, and I can get into the specifics of how we hired them and also my rather unique methodology for hiring. But we started with two, and we just gradually scaled up. We had about 6 recently. We had like 5 plus a part-timer, and then we hired 2 Colombians, and so we had, I don't know, was that 8, something like that, 8 full-time employees. So these are all full-time. We're not doing one-offs. I hired them all full-time in-house, in-house meaning in the Philippines, but then we set up communication infrastructure and started putting systems in place to manage people and manage projects. So I started with Filipinos, and I went to Colombia. And the reason for going to Colombia was, so we started with Filipinos on their time, and their time is basically the opposite our time. So when it's noon here, it's like midnight there. And so they were working, I basically never saw them. I just connected via email, and John, our CEO, was doing the same thing. And then we're like, this kind of sucks. It wasn't working for us in the way we communicated. So we ended up bringing them over, same guys, we just asked them to work our hours here, and I gave them a pay raise. And so they all switched over to 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, Central Standard Time, which is their graveyard shift. So that went really well. And we started noticing just some motivation / quality control / whatever. Basically, they weren't delivering what we wanted to deliver. And so we ended up, we had a hunch that it might be time zone based and just graveyard shift, like, hey, they're on the graveyard shift working in a room in the middle of the Philippines. The internet sucks there. They're probably, this is just a hunch that I had and John had shared. And so anyway, we went and hired, we're like, let's hire someone in our time zone. So we went to Colombia, and it's, they're 1 hour ahead and they wake up late. So it's like the perfect time zone for coders. So we hired 2 guys there. And then just a week or 2 ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, we still weren't getting the results we wanted, but I believe that it's based on my leadership and that I didn't feel like we had the right mission and vision and all that. So we ended up we fired everyone 3 weeks ago, and we're rebuilding the company now. We're going to base it in Colombia with a Colombian team of developers and just reboot that way. I have some, let's just get into the questions here. It seems like price, any questions about any of that before we do that? Or any
How did you head up? I mean, how did you find
Oh,
out?
sure, yeah. So my thing about hiring is when you go to like, so one of the, so there's a number of reasons you might want to go abroad as opposed to local. There are a number, like, so on just the straight up, so anyway, let's say you make the decision to go abroad. I just went to basically the monster.com of that country, and Odesk is generally a good place to start, odesk.com. There's also Philippines, there's a site called onlinejobs.ph that has just tons and tons of developers. But the cool thing about a lot of these countries, especially the Philippines, is they're very Western in terms of culture, but they also speak English fluently. It's taught in all the schools. And they have state-sponsored education and state-sponsored healthcare. So everybody has a master's degree in something in Philippines. Probably, if there's a call center, they probably all have master's degrees. So like, it's not hard. Like, it was not hard at all to find highly talented, highly, cheap labor. And I would just say, go on those sites. And so I always try to, so what we're trying to rebuild now, we're going to have we're rebuilding our mission and vision. And in terms of hiring, what we're going to do now is just, I'm still going to have the same hiring philosophy, which is basically, do you meet my minimum threshold for internet speed, skills, and English? And if you do, then we're going to hire you. And if we don't like you, you get like 30-day trial. And if you like it, you'll be on for the long haul, probably. If not, we'll just fire you and find someone else. And we're really upfront about that. And everybody, it makes sense. I think people just generally get it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
And the Colombians we actually found on Odesk, but all the Filipinos we went to onlinejobs.ph. And just in terms of cost, so here for a highly skilled WordPress developer, you're probably going to pay between, if you're just doing straight up freelance, it's probably between $60 and $150 an hour. If you're going to hire full-time, you can probably get a highly skilled guy for between 60 and 100 grand a year. Over there in the Philippines, you can get high skill for less than $5 an hour, US dollar. And we're talking the same skill set as someone you would pay 100 grand here for $5 an hour. In Colombia, we're paying around $12 an hour for the same skill set. So it's considerably more in Colombia, but it's still a deal on, or a break on the hourly wage that we would pay here. There's some people mentioned some concerns, and I totally agree with like communication. We struggled initially a lot with communication, but I think it's bigger than that. We found we needed just processes to hold people accountable to, and I think for us that's one of the main things we're struggling with, and why we fired everyone and we're rebuilding is because we're having a real difficulty holding people accountable. And it's really just inherent in the organization that we set up, that we just did a really poor job of thinking through that. And so we're going to reboot, and I think we're going to be really good at that.
So what do you suggest?
Well, for us, so this is a thing where I would say, like, it's whatever you need to figure that out as a company. For us, we're going to, there's a thing called, I forget, it's EOS, but there's a book called Traction. We're implementing that system, and what that system, part of the system is holding people accountable. But for us, I'm pretty sure what it's going to shake out to is we're going to keep track and measure how many promises, what percentage of our team's promises were delivered in the time frame they said they would deliver them. Because for us, that's a major pain. That's what keeps customers coming to us. It's just, did we do what we say? Yes or no? And so the goal would be to get our team delivering on 80% of their promises, 80% or more. And if they're not, then they're probably not going to be part of our team for the long haul.
Was there upfront costs and complexity, just the thought? Or how does it
Yeah, it's actually really cool because it's basically like a 1099. Like, they're full-time, but they're 1099. They're not even 1099. They're just a line item on my book, on my QuickBooks. It's like there's no, they have to deal with all their taxes just like we would here. Like, if I'm paid, I have to report that. It's like the same thing.
Even if they're full-time under your company, they're kind of.
Yep. So it's really paperwork free. Now, if you set up a physical location, that's totally different. Then you got to pay their taxes and go through all their stuff. But if they're freelancers sitting in their rooms or their office or their co-working space, you don't have to worry about it. Yeah.
Do they set the prices or do you?
I do just do some general research. I don't overthink things, especially at that price point. I just I do some Googling, and so like the Colombian thing, I just did some Googling, like what do Colombian developers get paid? And like I just chose it. So I just chose a range at random, and, you know, based on a limited data set, and did the same for Philippines. And in the Philippines especially, you can go, so there's another benefit of going to the Philippines. I'm not sure about Colombia yet, but Filipinos are, they're gonna stick with you till you're old and gray and dead, and then they're gonna wonder what to do next. And for me, that's a huge cost for my business, is just the turnover. And I would say that's probably the reason to go to the Philippines as opposed to hiring locally. So if you want people to hang around, just in the US, we have tons of job mobility. Like nobody expects you to hang around more than 2 years anymore. And if you do, you're like dedicated. Philippines, it's way different. And the expectation is that you're gonna be there and you're gonna stick it out. And so that to me was a huge cost savings and business driver. It's just our training costs are really high. Our onboarding costs.
I'm going through, how did you have trouble with your employees being able to afford equipment? Because I'm thinking at $5 an hour, even if the cost of living is really cheap.
So, no, they all had computers and monitors. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't know the state. We ended up buying all of our team new Macs because I just wanted, we were having like, mainly due to the distance. Like someone would say, I have this issue with Git, which is a version control thing, but like I have an issue with this software, and like we'd all try to troubleshoot it, and I was never sure if it was the hardware that they're using or the stuff they're typing. And so like I just wanted to remove one variable, so I just bought them all Macs, just so like I'm on a Mac, John's on a Mac, we're all on Macs now. So it's not the computer, it's like whatever you're typing, hopefully we can help you troubleshoot that. But they all have computers, and you could totally, we didn't buy their new computers until a few months ago, so we lasted a while without them. And it wasn't until we started implementing like really detailed and documented processes, which I can share with y'all. Once we started doing that, we realized, okay, everybody's following the process, but there's still issues. And so I just wanted to decrease the variables and troubleshooting those.
Did they give the Macs back?
No, yeah. I mean, well, the crazy thing about Philippines is, so I have one guy in the South, Sherwin, he was our longest employee, and one guy in Manila, and I couldn't mail anything to Sherwin because it would get confiscated by the local militia or whatever, and it would just never get to him. But Carl, I could mail things to in Manila. So I just gave him cash. I just said, here's $500, go buy a Mac Mini. And just to give you, did I tell you the price? So Philippines, yeah, I think I gave you the price. $12 is what we're paying in Colombia, and I don't know if that's high or low. It's what we're paying at. Like I said, I don't overthink these things. I mean, I just feel like we can move so fast that like I just don't worry about it so much.
So you mentioned the Philippines had a similar culture to Western culture. So there's in Colombia, the driver was same time zone or similar time zone. Was there any other cultural things that were aligned?
Yes, Filipinos will say yes, Toby, to anything I ask of them. Colombians will say, are you sure you want to do that? And I really want people to question my authority, but I wasn't getting that in the Philippines. And so it's probably, well, that and the time zone are the two biggest reasons we're not going to go there anymore.
How much face-to-face stuff? You have to fly, I'm assuming at some point you fly over there and meet them in person.
Yeah, so we've never done that, and I think that was part of our accountability problem, is that like we never, So we're on 9 to 5 live. We had just had Google Chats open all day, and so I know these guys really well, but I never touched their hand, you know, like, and John and I are flying down to Columbia in a couple weeks for that reason, because we just feel like we need to be there in the flesh to hold these guys accountable. So that's part of our strategy now, and that's part of why we chose Columbia as well. It's just because flights are easier. It's like an 8-hour flight from here, and you know, so that was definitely played into it. To fly to Manila is like 26 hours or something.
You missed Carnival.
Yes. Any questions about that stuff? I think I always think, like, getting back to domestic international. I don't like, the reason I don't like domestic people.
You're in a room full of domestic. Just say it.
Hourly rate, the tendency to want to sue over every disagreement?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's that stuff. The hourly rate doesn't even faze me though. Like, I'm like, because we can bill them out, and like, and we can bill them out. I'm not even worried about that, but I just don't like the job mobility is really tough for me to get over. Like, there's no loyalty, and we can get the same skill elsewhere. So, but that said, there is a huge advantage to having someone in-house. It solves all sorts of these meta problems: communication, priorities, accountability. You can solve that just having them in the room. So, you know, so we're struggling with those problems that would just be solved if we had someone in-house.
What sort of work are these people doing?
So these guys are all hardcore coders, and we do only WordPress sites. So my company is just, we build, basically we're, like if you had a company and you wanted to bring a team into your company, you could bring our team into your company. So that's what we do, and we just bill hourly. And so a lot of times people are building a product or something, and they just want a team to work on their product. So they'll bring us in, and they'll buy like 3 months of time. So, you know, so they're working on code problems mainly, design and functionality stuff. Complex stuff, though. We generally don't build a website. It's usually like fixing something that's broken.
Do you use them for designing at all?
No, so we had designers at one point, and we fired them all just because we wanted to focus. I felt like being involved in design is like, it's a huge conversation, but the development is also a huge conversation. So like, my background's in coding, and so like, let's just focus on code because that's what we know how to do, and it helped a lot just to drop that whole business. And so now sometimes as we go, I don't know, find a designer and we'll work with that person. Any other questions about anything so far? Or thoughts? There's has anyone had experience? What are some of your experiences with hiring, outsourcing? Any problems you ran into?
I've hired a couple of VAs. Both of them were out of India. One I had to actual like executive assistant work, sorting my contacts and that kind of thing. And then one I had doing just the BS stuff that I didn't only do, like find me a dry cleaner between my house and my day job, or find me some lawn care and snow removal company and get estimates and set up the payment, and you got my card, just set it all up. I don't want to deal with it anymore, kind of thing. Communication was definitely our biggest struggle, and you know, getting so a specific result wasn't the problem, but the method to acquire that result was definitely a struggle. So, you know, I would say, hey, I want you to use Photoshop to create this, and they would do it in like, what was he using? He did it in like PowerPoint or something. And I was just like, well, yeah, no, because I don't know what to do with that now. Like, so those are some of the struggles.
Yeah. I had a friend once.
That was for another. Yeah.
I had a friend once who was outsourcing web development work, and the designer sent him a Photoshop file what the website looks like, and the designer had a Mac, and so it had like the Safari Mac browser, and these guys in India, I think, like built, like they wrote code that changed the browser. like, oh, you want rounded corners on your browser? Here you go. Like, it sounds silly, but you know, like if you're giving me the specs, you know, it's tough, you know.
Yeah, it really came to a point where it was like, okay, you can't just give them an assignment and then give them free. You gotta check back in. Hey, I want you to get started on it, but check back in after you spend 5 hours or 10 hours or something.
I think that's what I've heard is the way we had an Indian on board for a while, and yeah, I don't know, like. So part of India has like 50 state holidays a year, so that was part of the issue for us. It seemed like every day he was taking off. And that was what's that? More than that? Okay. So that was a problem for us. And also, like, I mean, they're like, the guy we had in was like, no, I get these holidays off, period. And you know, we're like, okay. With the Filipinos, they also have state holidays, but I think the government and the laws are like reflective of the fact that many Filipinos service United States industry, so they have like rules around it. Like, okay, you can work the state holiday, but you have to pay them double. And like they just have like really clear rules. And we ended up giving our guys we just said, look, we're doing U.S. holidays, period. And we also gave them, everyone gets like 3 weeks of paid time off a year.
I managed an offshore development for a large company, and so I'm translating. I find it fascinating. I haven't even considered it for a startup, so it's just like a totally different world. And you know, so you know, some of the same things, your time zone. You know, for the larger company, we had a mixed model team, and that was chemistry was always challenging. Where the domestic team would always say, you know, basically complaining behind the scenes, you know, and whether or not it was right or wrong, it was just the chemistry was never there, and so they were never working that well. So you really had to split up and try and give whole products, the offshore team, and whole products, to onshore team, and minimize a little bit of the mixing, just because that was always an issue. But and then, you know, my experience was big companies, so they built up bureaucracies on both sides, and that was terrible. But on a small company, it's fascinating at a smaller level how it might be different.
I wonder, so did you guys have a, you know, were you following methodology for development, like Scrum or?
Yeah, we were definitely, you know, agile, Scrum based, but one of the things is the oversight. You didn't know how closely they were following, other than, you know, because there's minimal artifacts and they do the minimal, but you just didn't know for sure, you know, what kind of hybrid, what kind of different process they're really following behind the scenes, because you talk to them maybe once a day, or maybe it's talk start and end the day, but for 6 hours, you really don't know.
Yeah, I mean, for us, like, we were going crazy with our guys in the Philippines because, I mean, every day, I mean, it got to the point where John just saying, like, what are you working on right now? What are you working on right now? And they're probably totally working, but maybe their internet's down. Maybe they're sick today. I don't know. But like, they would never tell us, and we couldn't like tease it out of them. Like, like just tell us when you're not going to work. But like, you know, we're never sure. Like, you know, yeah.
That's where at least, you know, having very small, like where sprints help a lot, is at least make them show you something as often as possible.
I also think
just talk.
Yeah.
They'll say we're on track, go. All of a sudden. But you can do that here in domestic. I've had domestic teams do that too, and that's where show me is so important.
I think, and so the biggest change we're making now with the reboot is we're doing this traction process, which is about accountability and setting goals and just holding people accountable to those, and also putting the there's a methodology to just building the right team and it is pretty much what I just said. Like, you want people who are on board with whatever your business operating system is. You know, if it's, we're going to check in once a day and you're going to get your stuff done, then that's what you hold them accountable to.
Odesk has this app called Team where it takes screenshots. I'm curious if you use that. And
Yeah, we did. With our Indian guy was using that, and also some of the designers we used to use that. It does exactly what it says it does. At the end of the day, though, like for us, I'm like, I don't want to review their screens. like it doesn't tell me anything except that they were working. You know, like I'd rather just get guys that I trust to work.
That's the very biggest part. Like, you get the guys whom you trust, so just talk like everyone and keep communication going on. And someone who stays for a longer period of time will be most trustworthy. Like in your case, if I say like if you have a project manager there whom you know, and then the developers under whom like those developers will work on that project manager, and that project manager will report it to you. That will make the process much faster. Instead of just having a developer like working for you and you are checking everything, you just hire a project manager who will take care of those developers.
Definitely that at a bigger company. I'm wondering at a small company that would you like consider adding that overhead.
But it's much simpler, and because I do a lot of things and I have project managers who take care of it. And the Holi was like, if someone is working in India right now, it's like a 10-day holiday. It's their 7-day holiday, and I had to deliver something. And it's a big holiday. I can't even say that and go and work. So I told him that you have to make sure that the thing is delivered on time, even if it's a holiday. So he made them do extra work before the holiday and extra work after the holidays, so that the thing is still not delivered.
Even at a small company, you highly recommend that.
I recommend get a project manager, and then talk to the project manager, make relations with him, so that you trust him and he trusts you. It becomes very easy for you to manage those things. That's a little bit extra, but it makes a huge difference. Yeah, I've seen that before.
Yeah, and I think like this is one of those things like you could do it without a project manager. It depends on your interest in your company. But somebody needs to manage the project, or, you know, it's either you or someone else. So,
yeah.
And maybe that's like something that you go, well, we're going to go abroad because we need the extra savings on a project manager or whatever.
That's a good segue to the actual cost. So,
right, yeah.
What does it? So, just you asked about other groups working offshore. So, at Pearson VUE, we did a lot of offshoring with teams in India, and the net of it is it wasn't any cheaper. It was actually more expensive than having our onshore teams do it in the end, because of the way that things were fixed and things like that. Could you talk about like kind of what the overall cost is and how's the quality work and things like that?
Our monthly overhead, we have just a spreadsheet where we keep track of every expense we have. And I want to say our if you take mine and John's salary out of the equation, we just do some quick math.
There's a lot of zeros there.
We had, and just in terms of expenses for our business, with I don't know, 6 or 8 full-time developers abroad, not including John and my salary. So this is just overhead for the business, not including our salaries, but it does include the developers' salaries. I want to say we are at maybe like $14,000 a month just in overhead for everything that wasn't mine and John's salary. So that includes software, services, their salaries, accountant, bookkeeper, lawyer. We have retainers with all 3 of those. That's about it. We have a number of services, just because we have services for testing stuff, services for Photoshop, Git services. We have tons of little services that add up the cost. But yeah, does that help? Can I go more in depth on that, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we ran into is that we might hire somebody offshore for $10 an hour, but in the end, it's $50 an hour because
Yeah.
there's, in the end, there's rework and there's the overhead of having to collaborate with them.
I think I always look at it like it's probably a wash. That's how I view it. But to me, the advantage of hiring abroad is more loyalty. That's the biggest advantage for me.
Less turnover?
Less turnover, yep. So less cost there, less headaches, really. Like because my business's goal is to get me out of the headaches. That's really what I aim for is like fewer headaches, and that's why I bought a Max. I'm just like, but it probably is a savings I don't know though, because I haven't hired full-time local. But we'd be looking at 3 times the salary, probably, maybe more. I bet you it's a savings to go abroad to these countries. I'm guessing that Pearson, was it Pearson? I'm guessing they have like an overseas facility?
No, we went through groups like Lionbridge, very large.
Okay. Do you know what you're paying per hour for those guys? Is it like 20 to 40 an hour? Yeah, so that's well more than we're paying for Filipinos and also for Colombians. So it's possible that there's your difference, and another reason to go to Colombia is the English skills. So they have fast internet and comparable or better English. So we always put our because we embed our dev team in your company, we need them to be able to talk on the phone, talk on Skype. So that's a requirement for us. And so. Any other questions? How are we doing on time here? Is it getting close?
I think we wrap up here the next
Sure.
couple minutes.
Any other questions? I do have another thing I could go into just in terms of what we've done about communication and accountability and whatnot. So we had three main problems that over the last 3 years, we've solved 2 of them. So we had process control, quality control, and then accountability. And communication was a 4th one. The communication thing was pretty much solved in large part when we went to 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. Process control, we really just started documenting everything and said, anytime you're going to commit code to our repository, here are the steps you take, and if let us know if you need to go outside of those steps. So we implemented processes for just about everything, and it's all documented in a series of Google Docs, basically, and web pages. And like I said, I can share those with you. And that also was in the quality control. We implemented, about a year ago, we implemented just WordPress coding standards, because before that I was just like, just get it done, whatever, if it works, great. And that was my personal philosophy, like if it works, great, who cares how it looks or whatever. But we found that some of our clients cared. And so we just started enforcing WordPress coding standards. And WordPress has like 1,000, not 1,000, has very well documented pages of how to write code. So we just linked to those pages, and every morning I went through and reviewed our code and said, just reviewed for, does it adhere to WordPress coding standards? So like code works fine, but like there's not a space where there needs to be a space. But there's spaces instead of tabs, stuff like that. So I would go in and enforce that every morning. And mainly that was just for consistency. Our clients weren't asking for WordPress standards. They just wanted consistent code. So that's why we did that. On the communication front, we built, I would just say you can use any tool we want. Because we bill hourly, we built a tool because we couldn't find one that exists that was easy to use. But we built one that combines to-do lists with, so it's project management plus billing built in, and we just built it on top of WordPress. It's just an app. Pretty simple, but the idea is like, now we have a client dashboard where the client logs in, can communicate with our developers in real time. When we're working on it, or Trello, or it's like the same thing. But it also has, anytime our developers work, they attach the time they work to a specific to-do or story or whatever, if you use Scrum, it's called stories. But the idea is like at any time, the client can log in and say, how many hours did this piece of functionality require? And it'll be just show all the hours for that functionality. But again, that's more of the lifestyle design business thing, because I was getting sick of a client would call and say, how long did it take to do that? I'd be like, God, I hate this phone call. Because I go through and like, oh crap, I don't know, it was like roughly 8 hours. But now when that call comes in now, like that call's gone away completely, because we just say, well, did you log into your dashboard? Just click that button and you can see all that. So we don't deal with that call. We also don't deal with invoicing anymore because we require prepayment. So I hated invoicing. I was having trouble collecting invoices, and so now we just say prepay, and now we just deduct your hours, and it's all in that dashboard. It's all synced up, and if you have 10 hours left, you need to re-up, and it'll send you emails saying you're low. But again, that's just to relieve a headache that we had.
Did I sell that app?
Yes, we're gonna open source it really soon.
Okay.
That's awesome.
That sounds great.
Yeah, I think almost everybody here.
It's just a WordPress plugin, but it relieves those two headaches for us.
Paying $9 a month for the rest of the business life.
Yeah, exactly. Any specific questions about any of that?
I go back to a previous thing you mentioned about your hiring philosophy. You said that you hire people that you trial period and then kind of figure out. I'm curious if you're like an airline where you assume that some percentage of people that you hire aren't going to make it, so you overhire, so that eventually you'll end up with the right amount.
Yeah, we haven't done over hiring to date. I guess that's the best answer I can give. The thing about it, it's so easy to find them in these markets. Like, oh, you need another super advanced PHP guy? There's like 100 of them waiting for you to call right here, So for us, that's worked out really well. But I don't even worry about it. It's just so easy to find people that meet my criterion.
Client work that you have now, you don't have a team to do it. How?
We closed all our client work for 30 days.
Okay.
While we rebuild. So we're neither John nor I are drawing a salary right now.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah.
Now you feel like a real star. Back to the basics.
Cool. I'm about out of time here. I read a lot of books, and a lot of what I read in books gets implemented in my business because I get inspired a lot of times. So a lot of what you heard today was inspired by, so the 80-20 stuff, lifestyle design stuff was pretty much 4-hour work week straight out of that. I do believe that the book's mostly BS, but there are things in that book that have changed my life, both my marriage, my business, my family life. And then if you go there's a couple other books. There's one called Uncommon Service that the gist of the book is like, do some things bad so that you can do some things good. And so that for us, what we ended up doing was we stopped worrying about code so much, and we just worried about basically, are we delivering what we're promising? And so like, communication is basically where we put our focus now. And it's what keeps our clients around. So. Cool. Thank you all.
Thank you.
And I'll be around if you want to talk. I can share pretty much anything.
Yeah, I would encourage you to ask, your specific questions after. We're just going to finish up a little bit of a group activity, get you out of here on time if we can. I get my track of my stuff. Got that. All right, so I'm just going to do like a really quick update here on where we're at. You guys remember this slide, hopefully. This is my favorite slide about how often you should be doing stuff versus theorizing. So no real update on the real estate broker list. So I'll catch you guys up. I'm doing 12 and 12s, 12 products in 12 months. So real estate broker list was the January project. Nothing really has happened in the past since the last meeting too much. Partnership with a school and working out some other ideas, but not too much. HyperQ, which is a dead simple drip campaign, is and the site's been redesigned, I think, a bit since this has been taken. Is the February Meetup, making some interesting progress on that. And the March is I wanted to learn Swift. So I wrote an app for helping nurses calculate the drip rate of IVs and verify it, so they can calculate and verify the drip rate. So that's March. And in April, I'm going to do this billing app that is it a to-do plus billing together? Yeah, it's a dashboard. Start charging for that. No, I'm totally kidding. But yeah, so I don't have any idea what I'm doing next month, but we'll find out. So also coming up, for those of you who care, James and I are going to do a course called Idea to Revenue in 12 Weeks. Coming up, can't remember when it starts. 14th, April 14th or something like that. $299 if you sign up by the end of the day. It's $249 if you're interested. That'll be a really fun course, going through all kinds of a little bit more specific stuff and really focusing in on getting to revenue. So nothing too much about that. So the group activity that I was going to try to plan for you guys today, we'll keep it quick, is who here has seen the business model canvas? Yeah. All right, so we got some pros here. So for those of you who haven't, we're just going to kind of go through and review it again. I know that this is not very readable here, but we're going to start just for this group exercise on the value propositions area of the business model canvas. And really what it says, is that kind of readable?
Sort of.
Sort of. I didn't test it out ahead of time. I can't even read it from here. So, you know, what value, it was really focusing on what value you drive to the customer. So a lot of people that I talk to sometimes get this, you know, I'm totally focusing on the value. So like Toby earlier was talking about, the value to his customer is really about the communication, right? Kind of being there and being engaged and making sure that, I would imagine, the customer knows the status of the project all the time and stuff. That's probably one of the big value propositions for you. So knowing that and knowing what your value prop is when you talk to your customer, when you do all your discussions, it really helps focus you in on what's important and what's not important. So to Toby's earlier comment about, you know, be bad at some things because they're not your core value prop, like that's okay, right? So this is what we're going to do, is get together as a group exercise, maybe break off in teams of 4 or 5, self-organize however you want to do that, and pick somebody's project or company that you're working on in your team and go through this particular set of questions. So what value do you deliver to the customer? Which, notice one of the customer problems are we helping to solve? What bundles of products and services are you offering to each customer segment? And which customer needs are we satisfying? That all makes sense to everybody? So you're going to kind of, as a team, get together and maybe, if you're on my team, we might talk about real estate broker list, right? We might say, oh, well, the value we're delivering to the customer, well, the primary, we got 2 customers. So which one are we going to do first? Right? The real estate broker list has 2 customers. It's real estate agents and real estate brokers. So you got to pick one. Just pick one. It doesn't matter which one. We'll pick real estate agents. What's the one problem that we're solving for real estate agents? Well, we're helping them connect with brokers in their community, help them understand how many brokers are in their area, what kind of brokers they are, et cetera, et cetera. What bundles of products and services are we offering? Well, we're offering a website with a database of brokers in the area that's geolocated, lets them search by city and other criteria, right? So simple enough. Which customer needs are we satisfying? That's kind of, you know, connecting to the broker, help them advance their career, et cetera, like that. That kind of resonate okay with everybody? Everybody excited about this? Or? Yeah. Hey, cool. There's paper here. So of course, I printed a bunch of these, right? And they're at home on my printer. So I've got blank pieces of paper here, and you know, these are really just the things you're going to answer in this exercise. So I'll pass them out, self-organize. We'll take a few minutes to get to it, and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah, they have 112. Should we self-organize right here? I had a story. So I just hired a small business website out to a guy in Russia. And he was always just like rushing off to university about it. Yeah. What's that? I don't know. I'm sure he was like 18, 19 years old.
What's that? I was gonna go back to such a small group.
I got a new
Yeah, well, right there. Yeah.
It was good. I didn't get too much trouble from that. I just had to do everything.
Oh.
I'm James.
I'm Bob.
Bob, nice to meet you. Ishmael. Ishmael. Nice to meet you as well.
James.
Paul.
Nice to meet you. So somebody here has a
So
product.
good example of product they're working on.
Ishmael, what are you working on?
Service that I provide. Custom software. Moving into digital signal processing and FPGA and actually building the chip, the hardware of it. Service providers.
Good brand. Good brand.
And team of representatives of the city who created work here, and team in Kentucky do the work for us, and then I have a team from India, and a lot of people and who's saying like, works out the company.
So what value do you deliver to the customer?
Right.
One value, as you said, the communication part, they don't have to actually go over communicate.
Yeah.
They can communicate with me and my team and go and go and there's
Actually, in 2015.
Yeah.
Straight up.
Right, all the things for them is hardware. And again, second is like specifically you take those projects in which you understand your business. It's not just the software we are building, but we're building a business. Website is not just a website, but it's a business, a piece of the business. The second value that is like we will understand your business. If we understand your business, we work with you. If you don't, then we'll see if we can find people if we can. Otherwise, yeah. So second is more important is like understanding your business, your needs, and delivering it. We can.
Where's the product going to deliver?
Oh.
What technologies are at?
That's where I'm at right now. I'm in the process of.
Basically, if I understand what you asking for, like if for example you asking for a mobile app, your Domino's owner, you want a mobile app which people can buy.
Okay.
So then we come up with the design of, if you don't have anything, we come up with the design of it, and then we go with the design if you like it, and then we make the whole thing.
So are you delivering?
So if I'm getting it right, so the product, actually you got the product itself. Exactly. So hardware is a different sector. Example, you need a Wi-Fi router.
Sure.
So you need a Wi-Fi router, and you need your customized Wi-Fi router. You want it for companies that works at a higher speed than actual routers that will stream 4K video and everything. So that's a different project. Now that we will see, like if you do have the specification, we take the specifications, what boards you want to use, and then we will see if we can do it. So you got the router that we wanted for you. You have another customer who wants to sell these routers to Comcast. They want it, you're making it for Comcast, so you make it for Comcast. So, end product is product that you already asked us to make.
Then anything as far as wearables go, wearable technology.
No, I'm thinking what you said, but I didn't understand. But here's a very good product, which is getting a fair marriage on, right?
Yeah. You think you'll match them? Yeah, you think you match your target customer be corporations who are looking to do more charitable hiring or give opportunities, or is it in that sense? Who would you so? and cancer. You're gonna sign up. Is this a homeowner? So our mouse is. So you know, we have to go through it. I was watching him die because he got to stop because he was sick. Long time cancer, sick, he'd still be alive. So you know, I couldn't. It could be individual. Technology industry. And it will be off the idea of it, but watching getting investors in wearable technology. Yeah. Now, most people wearable technology, I got that. This is going to be a watch. I can't scan the entire body for cancer with a watch. I mean, maybe 10 years.
Detecting the signals which creates the tumor, or which this tumor cannot be detected every single time, right?
Oh, take a picture.
Yeah.
Basically, it's a.
Now, connected to the app, manages small electrical body. You're looking for the electrical resistance signal. Pick up, everyone's here stood on a fast analyzing
Big group of wealthy people.
That works very simply. Basically, standardize that idea, use it differently. Scan that up, send electrical current through your body. It's got an immune resistance, fat, muscle, bone. Based on its weight, it's got no fat, muscle. We're adding a new norm and electrical resistance. Broad and different types of cancer. But you're basically looking for electrical resistance that's going to make it rise. Now there's a resistance signal you lower it long. Yeah, so yeah. Hey, I gotta get it. Kind of similar to the road. Okay, you send that information here. He schedules an MRI tomorrow. They take traditional medicine, verifies it. Now cut stage 2. But they would be.
So like the front, sorry. The front part is actually sending the signal and the back part is actually receiving it.
Yeah, both.
Both are sending and back and forth, so both can receive it.
And overall, it's gonna be sure it won't just be. We'll do a broad.
Well, yeah.
Sure, just go chest, lungs, and if you're outside of the MRP, you miss it. So it's pretty so it's you gotta do the underarms because that's where the underarms are. And if you have a lot of the rest of the woman, you're gonna have to do yeah, smaller version, one more sure for the guys. You just need to have good skin.
So what value are you?
Yeah.
Well, for the end user, the person, like detect cancer at stage 2, more remember talking about 1 round of chemo and a round of really happy life. You detect at stage 4, painful suffering death. Our actual paying customers is going to be the insurance industry. The benefit for them is we save them tens of billions of dollars in the long run because you get late stage surgery cancer, you come in sick. They may drop $10,000 to $15,000 a month on the treatment. You may end up in remission. You may be on treatment for years. You cost $150,000 to $200,000, and there's a better than 50% chance not to be more than a year. But let's talk about money. You die. You stop paying premiums. And Medicare and Medicaid are moving towards outcome-based medicine. I mean, they'll pay you more if people live. They pay you less if people die. So, let's say you have 10 million customers. That guy's got 30 million. They lost all their kids. Say it was 30 million, 30,000 of them are stage 4 cancer patients. They're going to end up 150 to 250,000,
I guess,
and they're going to die.
This is a device you're going to be selling to doctors or?
The goal is to get the insurance industry to pay us $10 a month per customer, and then to incentivize every one of those customers to put it on once a month. You could be cancer-free today, you might not be cancer-free in December. If you're not in the habit of putting it on like the first of the month, opening the app, scanning yourself, putting it back in your closet,
and walking away from it.
Right.
Because you can stay so today.
So it would be like the insurance companies will buy, so for example, I take that particular insurance, the insurance company will give that product, then I have to actually wear it every single time.
Well,
Or I have an option of wearing them.
Right. How do you, as a parent, say, nah, you know, I'm not gonna give you $5 for that. No big deal.
well, what if some of these charity organizations, yeah, you know, their mission is to house or some you or your work and so I wonder if they would need one. Some people do this, right? Yeah, because I would hire out for that, and that's okay, right? You know, I use Craigslist standards, you know, whatever. Somebody can move stuff or carry it. But you know, but you're taking your chances. There isn't any rating system. There isn't any. Right. You know, and I've had the absolute best guy I've ever worked with in my life. Some of the worst.
Yeah.
You want to get bumped by a car, you want to get run over by a center. Those are, that's interesting.
So some of the win-win is some of the insurance companies will point to their seeing some job, like, I guess the incentive is to have the long lives. So obviously the people protecting it, have a benefit as well. For so like the whole SWAT.
Right.
So, what do you see as a?
Well, that's true. Always, it's always true if you hire a kid.
Be as much chemo, right, or radiation.
Right, you're probably not costing some of the pharmaceutical companies. Well, they're just. Community stage. Yeah. State board for.
And, you know, it's.
We are trying to network with some of the pharmaceutical companies that have good.
Yeah, it's a
All right, say Johnson & Johnson has stage 2 cancer. They push this, and at the same time, that would be advertising. So Johnson's got
you know, I'm not gonna go after the person I've hired.
So I could go advertising pharmaceutical companies.
And in theory, the money isn't
What the database of what do we have, what drugs do you think would be a good match? So tomorrow, in a panic, if you call your doctor, to this happens, I got something. Johnson has something or other, it's doctor, what that? Okay. People don't go after Craigslist. They're all there.
No, but they do.
Well, successful.
And
You know, all they're doing is.
your main customer is insurance.
Craigslist is also more like, it's truly saying that they would board me, buy the shirt, try it. You're saying my company service, on the workforce site, is something that they think through. I have a strategy, even if it's the same.
Right. Hang out in the closet and you live around. That would probably be, I'm finding that people learn how to wear my logo off the word. Somewhere. But the individual will be able to buy it.
For the mobile app version, it's gonna just be $10 a month. Maybe it's not great early on.
That's what it calls.
How do you decide?
As far as millions,
That's why everything happens.
like 30 million.
I think that's really important. I'm gonna let you answer.
I don't mind. That's my personal opinion.
Good product. I think we also need technology. Tools are hard resistance.
Yeah.
Which is a
Sounds like the conversation's slowing down a little bit, so we'll call an end to it. Anybody want to share what they've learned or what if anything, this exercise may have taught you, or maybe that you don't want to ever do it? You guys want your group want to share? I'll just call on people since I'm here. You guys.
Sorry.
All right, now you guys get to share first. How about that? What did you guys think about the exercise? Thought Helpful, not helpful, anything like that? Anything you wanna, anything at all?
Well, we were trying.
Yeah, maybe he would. I think it was helpful.
Okay.
A lot of we got a lot of points across that helped fix some issues that came up in the conversation. Insightful. So.
Okay. Anything specific that you want to share?
We can't. Apparently, I have a legal thing I have to worry about.
There you go.
That's always going to be true.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
All right. Cool. So that's just the first step of the canvas, right? There's several other things. And you guys? Anything?
I think we did the first question that was basically your company in mind. We got fantastic, but it was interesting.
Okay.
If we had a little more time, we might have been able to get the question too.
You
All
actually
right.
got most of the question answered. But a good feel of the product. It was good. It's a good product.
Okay.
We didn't know where I'm at.
Yeah, you explained it pretty well.
Excellent.
I'm thinking it through for a while.
Okay. Sounds good. You guys? Anything?
Share what we.
Yeah. Anything you want to share about the exercise? Was it? I don't know. Tell people my.
Saying it definitely helps me because I'm pretty new to company, so helps me make sure I'm delivering the right message in a succinct way. So the final elevator pitch and how get people excited about what my company is and what I'm talking about. Take that exercise, drive that home. I understand the value proposition in my head. A lot of times, what's in my head, luckily for the rest of the world, doesn't come out right. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. One of the things that my girlfriend says about me is I don't have a filter. So if it's in the brain, it's out the mouth usually. So anyway, this is a little bit high-level overview of it. So this is what we did. What do you do? If you guys go home and look at the Lean Startup Canvas, it's usually you work through these few first. It's kind of the value prop and what you're going to do with who your customer is, how you interact with them, how you reach them. Then you do this other part kind of later. But I would encourage you to check it out. It's a really fun exercise to work through with about 4 or 5 different people. Even if they're not super familiar with your business, but it's better if they're more familiar with your business. So work through that. Any questions? Or I'm rushing through it. I know I want to get you out of here. So rate the meetup. You can rate it whatever you want. But, excellent. Anybody who knows anything about anchoring, right? So let me guess. So the next thing is we do the Prizatron, I think. Yeah. So let me get there. No, I'm not, unfortunately, right? Oh, is this working?
There's bars up on Minneapolis.
There we go.
Like right across the street. You go out of the elevator. Just basically
All right, so we're doing a drawing for 2 1-month memberships to Pluralsight. And Pedro's not here. Shame. Shame, everybody, shame. I know it. Paul? There he is. All right, and then get one more. John. Excellent. Well, thank you all for coming. Big hand again for Toby and everyone else. Thank you for your participation. And
what do I do? Just grab something?
Oh, there's cards in there. You can grab that if you want to. Anybody, if you want a pen, and here's the membership card. So you go type that in. I guess you're free month. Very cool. There you go. Oh, pen if you want one.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You feel free to stick around if you want. Sorry about forgetting your name. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Here, I have a USB charger.
All right.
That's fun. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, now are you still doing outsourcing?
We did one.
See you later.